I think I have ADHD and autism, or I just got my diagnosis for ADHD and autism. Now what? Hi, I'm Brett, the AuDHD Boss. On this channel, we take a strengths-based approach to autism and ADHD in the corporate workplace. I'm an autistic leader with ADHD. On this video, I'm going to go through a stack of books that I found useful after I got my late diagnosis of autism, and a book that I read while I was trying to understand more about my own autism and ADHD. For starters, Nerenberg's Divergent Mind, Thriving in a World That Wasn't Designed for You. This, as you can see from all my sticky notes, is an amazing book if you're trying to better understand the world of neurodivergence and the various forms of neurodivergent things, the different kinds of things that are on the spectrum when it comes to neurodivergence. This is a great entry point into understanding neurodivergence and the different things that are on the neurodivergent spectrum. This book also talks specifically about the research and how late the research was for women with neurodivergence, and how it really wasn't until much later in the 2000s that we were starting to get research for ADHD and autism specifically around women, and why there is so much new research today only because of that more recent research study, which is why we're finding ourselves closer and closer to more people getting diagnosed and more people understanding about neurodivergence, specifically autism and ADHD. I highly recommend this book. The audiobook is amazing. The book is very practical. Jenara used to be a journalist, and so it's written in a very user-friendly way. I really like this term. I really like the different ways that she defines things, the examples that she writes about, all the research that it points to. This is a very useful book if you're at the beginning of trying to understand more, or you're asking questions about, am I autistic, am I ADHD, am I self-diagnosing? Wherever you are at that beginning part of your journey, I highly recommend this. This is also a great book to give somebody who's trying to understand your neurodivergence. If you've recently been given a neurodivergence diagnosis, or you think you're on the spectrum, or you're starting to do that research for yourself and you want somebody to better understand it, this is a great book for helping someone else understand what your brain is going through. Once you've got your autism or ADHD diagnosis, whether it's through self-diagnosis or formal diagnosis, I strongly recommend Dr. Megan Neff's Self-Care for Autistic People. Now, this book, again, you can see on my sticky notes, this is my favorite book and how to support myself in my autism. This book has given me more tips, more strategies, more ways, as the title suggests, ways to recharge, de-stress, and unmask, and that is very true and very accurate. I have found so much help from this book. Again, an amazing audiobook. What I love about this book is it's very quick. Every single page has quick bullet points. It's very easily written. There's quick little tidbits to educate you about different things that happen, but then quick resources about how to support, fix, address, or manage different things that can come up for you when you're having different moments because of your autism and ADHD. She regularly talks about ADHD and autism in this book, and she has a book coming out on burnout. Stay tuned for that. How to ADHD. Of course, I think almost everyone knows Jessica McCabe from How to ADHD's YouTube channel, and how that's really the channel that defined most of us who are out here doing content creation for autism and ADHD. Jessica did more than anybody else in sort of helping define, educate, advance the needs of specific people to make access to understanding ADHD more user-friendly for everybody. It was amazing still that she put all of that into a book, and as she says herself, the book is written for the ADHD mind. It is very much a cookbook-style book. It might seem thick, but you can literally open up to any section in this book and have a strategy, an idea, a tip, a piece of education, and examples, things to help you better understand ADHD, and a lot of these things will extend to autism as well, but this is probably like my Bible when it comes to ADHD. Anytime I've got a question, or I'm wondering about something, or trying to define something, or I'm trying to better explain something to somebody, I grab this book, I look up in the index what I'm looking for, and I go right to that thing, and it's very simplified, it's very easily written, it's very user-friendly. I love this book. It's an amazing book. It's absolutely my favorite book about ADHD, and Jessica is just an incredible teacher, an incredible explainer, and just an incredible person sort of helping people understand themselves and their ADHD. I do this one in two parts. This is Understanding Autism in Adults and Aging Adults, and Understanding Autistic Behaviors, Improving Health and Well-Being. These are both from Theresa Regan, and at first I was skeptical to read these. These were recommended to me after I got my diagnosis, and I started to do the audiobook. They're very quick, and they're very thin, and they're very simple, and they're pretty good. I find some of them to be a little frustrating in some of the write-ups, but also there's a lot of definitions and explaining different things. There's a lot of things that sort of, in particular, this one, again, you can see my sticky notes for both understanding autism in adults and aging adults. This really helps specifically with understanding a lot of different terminology about why do we do certain things the way that we do, the different struggles that we face. There are solution-based things in here. I was kind of all over the place when I read this book. I found some of the other ones a little bit more helpful, but this is still, it's got really helpful behaviors. They're also helpful if I had older people in my life who have autism as well. This was really helpful in thinking about how to approach older adults. And finally, my favorite book of all time about autism. I would call this the quintessential book on autism, Unmasking Autism from Dr. Devin Price. This is an amazing resource whether you are self-diagnosed or you are diagnosed. This book specifically, if you have not yet received a formal diagnosis and you're starting to question whether you need a formal diagnosis, you should read this book first. Again, another amazing audiobook from Dr. Devin Price, but also the book itself is pretty amazing as well. If you want to read it, you can see, again, I have a lot of sticky notes of different sections that I stopped to reread or re-highlight. This book in particular helps you walk through the process of, do I need a diagnosis? Do I need a formal diagnosis? What's the benefit? What's the downside? And it's a strong proponent for self-diagnosis and helping you walk through that process and try to understand that self-diagnosis. This book really does an amazing job at explaining masking, what it is, why we need to unmask, how helpful it is to unmask, but it also just does an amazing job of taking a modern-day approach to helping you understand what autism is, relationships in autism, and it's just every page, every chapter, every single thing gave me an aha moment or a moment where I was just like, oh my God, yes, that's why I do that thing. Yes, I understand myself. I understood myself so much more. This was sort of the manual for my mind after I finished reading this book on autism, to the point that I really wanted every person that I was close to in my life to read this book or listen to the audiobook so that they had a better understanding of why I am and why I do the things the way that I do, specifically because of my autism. I wish more people who had someone who was autistic in their life would read this book. It is my #1 go-to book when anybody asks me anything about autism. I say, you know, you ought to read Unmasking Autism, because this book does the best job of explaining to the world the differences and the things that we need to better understand and better get familiar with in terms of autism. I have links to all of these books down below in the description, and I hope you'll find some of these helpful. I didn't want to go too in-depth on any of them because, of course, this is all their writing, but definitely these are things that influence my channel. These are things that influence my thinking, the way I talk about my ADHD and my autism in particular, and I hope you can find some of these things really useful. If you are in the process of getting a self-diagnosis, which, again, I can't stress enough, the website Embrace Autism, they have ebooks, but they have many free resources on their website, all of the diagnostic tools for how to get tested for autism, for self-diagnosis, are on Embrace Autism's website. I can't stress enough how great that resource is if you don't have the funds to spend on a book or any of these resources. I'm Brett the AuDHD Boss. I hope that was helpful. If you're trying to figure out more about autism and ADHD, please check out some of these resources that I've talked about. You can also like and subscribe to this channel where we talk about autism and ADHD in the workplace, specifically in the corporate workplace. Please like and follow. Please subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and it helps get my information out to more people. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check out some of the other videos while you're on my channel.